You know how Hollywood is. Sometimes women understand each other better than men ever could. And a few of my friendships, well, might have been a bit more intimate than people assumed. But I've never been close enough to share a dressing room with anyone without them driving me absolutely mad at least once.
Katharine Hepburn once shocked the world when she revealed the identities of 7 lesbian actresses with whom she had secretly been romantically involved, while at the same time harboring a deep sense of resentment toward them. The legendary star, with her cold, mesmerizing beauty and irresistible allure, had captivated countless famous men from Howard Hughes to Spencer Tracy, who were hopelessly enchanted by her. Yet strangely, despite so many celebrated romances that became part of Hollywood legend, Hepburn never walked down the aisle again. Because hidden behind it all was a secret no one could have anticipated. She had once given her love to women, not just to 1, but to 7 prominent, powerful, seductive, and enigmatic figures of the entertainment industry at the time. But as the twilight years of her life approached, Hepburn chose to break her silence, for those very relationships had left wounds in her heart that were nearly impossible to put into words. So who exactly were these women? And what was it that compelled Hepburn to keep them concealed while carrying such profound hatred until the very end of her days? Let us uncover this astonishing and dramatic story in today's video. 1. Tallulah Bankhead, the storm that nearly swept Hepburn away from herself. Hepburn's first same-sex relationship began on a summer night in 1937 at the mansion of director George Cukor. That evening, Bankhead appeared wrapped in a heavy leopard fur coat, wearing nothing underneath a cigarette dangling from her lips, her eyes blazing with a fire that seemed to shatter every boundary. Hepburn, long admired for her composure and her famously aloof exterior, was immediately drawn in, unable to look away. It felt as though she had been pulled into a whirlwind from which there was no escape, utterly powerless against Bankhead's intoxicating magnetism. And that very night, the two slipped quietly out of the party, slid into a black Packard, and began a love affair that Hepburn would later call the most dangerous period of my life. Bankhead was seductive, yet chaotic, and everything Hepburn had once believed about discipline and control collapsed entirely. She was not only powerful and passionate, but also dangerously unpredictable. After nights of being swept away in waves of fervent desire, there came an evening when Bankhead stormed into Hepburn's hotel room drunk, naked, with contraband still between her lips, shouting, "If you don't love me openly, I'll make sure the whole world knows what we do behind these doors." Hepburn had never imagined she would be trapped in such an intoxicating, manipulative affair. Tallulah not only introduced her to a world of deadly temptations, but also turned her into a prisoner within a relationship with no escape. On another occasion, in a haze of intoxication, Bankhead coerced Hepburn into attending a party saturated with contraband and alcohol. Everything was blurred, yet Hepburn remembered vividly the moment when Tallulah snarled her challenge. "You don't dare live true to your love, and I will make all of Hollywood see you as a fraud." That was the first threat in a chain of actions from which Hepburn found no release. The turmoil only came to a halt when a confidential magazine reporter suddenly snapped a photograph of the two embracing at Fire Island, a secret paradise for the homosexual community at that time. If that image had ever surfaced, Hepburn's career and reputation would have been destroyed. To protect the secret, she was forced to pay money through an intermediary and bring the painful relationship to an end. But just as Hepburn believed the nightmare had ended, Bankhead refused to let go. She began sending scattered letters to directors, journalists, and even Spencer Tracy, fabricating claims that Hepburn had forced herself upon her in a haze of narcotics, thereby tarnishing Hepburn's name. After this scandal, Hepburn never spoke Tallulah Bankhead's name again. Yet even though she had escaped this violent storm, she had no idea that the next woman to enter her life would wound her heart even more deeply, a woman with eyes as cold as steel and a heart that would never allow Hepburn to come near. 2. Joan Crawford, the woman who turned Hepburn's love into a bargaining chip with public opinion. Katharine Hepburn and Joan Crawford were no strangers to fierce confrontations in the Hollywood film industry. On screen, they had repeatedly clashed over important roles, competing ruthlessly to secure the position of MGM's top star. Their battles did not stop at auditions. Both women constantly sought ways to draw the press's attention at red carpet events, even going so far as to sever social connections so that each could shine more brightly than the other. Yet everything suddenly shifted one evening in 1939 when the two took part in a charity project for orphans forced to film continuously for 18 hours straight. As night fell, no one could have imagined that between these two women long regarded as rivals, there would erupt a burning kiss inside the dressing room. That moment came as a shock to them both. Hepburn, who for years had been seen as the embodiment of strength and independence, suddenly felt her heart opening, seeing in Joan Crawford a completely different person, fragile, lonely, and empty. This was a Joan Crawford far removed from the dazzling spotlight, with tears slipping beneath the layers of makeup, awakening in Hepburn both compassion and desire. But for Joan Crawford, it was nothing more than a calculated game of passion. The very next morning, when a reporter from Movie Mirror happened to spot them leaving a Palm Springs hotel together in the same car, the situation immediately became dangerous. Instead of protecting the fragile relationship that had just begun, Crawford quickly telephoned the editor of Movie Mirror. She proposed in exchange she would provide the magazine with the unpublished manuscript of her memoirs on the strict condition that Hepburn's name would never be mentioned in connection with the incident. It was a cruel betrayal that Hepburn carried with her for the rest of her life. Although the pain cut deeply, Hepburn refused to show tears or rage. When asked about the matter during a private interview in October 1940, she replied with cold detachment, "Joan has always played the role of a strong woman very well. But it is only when she meets someone truly strong in real life that you see just how far she is willing to go." After this bitter betrayal, Hepburn made a solemn promise to herself that she would never again allow anyone to exploit her emotions. Yet fate seemed determined to continue testing her. Only a year later, in the summer of 1941, she crossed paths with another woman, an actress famous for her sweet love letters sent to women and for always carrying with her a notebook filled with the names of her former lovers. 3. Mercedes de Acosta, the woman who betrayed Hepburn. Mercedes de Acosta was not a major star on the silver screen, but her name was closely tied to some of the most notorious secret affairs in Hollywood during the 1920s and 1930s. She was a poet, a playwright, and above all, one of the rare women who dared to openly acknowledge her love for other women at a time when society was still bound by rigid and unforgiving gender norms. Her name had once been linked with many entertainment legends, Greta Garbo, Marlene Dietrich, and even the dancer Isadora Duncan. But with Katharine Hepburn, the relationship carried a different weight, one that was both passionately intoxicating and dangerously volatile. Their first meeting took place in 1932 at the premiere of a play penned by de Acosta, when Hepburn was entering the most dazzling stage of her career following the resounding success of Alice Adams. Mercedes, with her aura of mystery and irresistible allure, immediately stirred Hepburn's heart. Not long afterward, she sent Hepburn a love letter, handwritten on French silk paper, signed in red ink, and ending with an invitation that could not be refused. "I know you are strong, but if one day you grow weak, lean on me." Hepburn, known for her privacy and her near silence when it came to matters of the heart, was not someone who easily revealed her emotions. Yet, under de Acosta's fervent passion, she found herself swept away, unable to resist, and gradually drawn into this fiery romance. Together they spent many quiet afternoons riding horses through the tranquil outskirts of Santa Barbara, where no one could see them except for the dry fields and the hurried kisses they kept hidden beneath their cloaks. And yet, those fleeting moments of happiness did not last. everything began to change when Acosta, unable to contain her pride in the relationship, started boasting at glamorous cocktail parties. "This time, I am in love with a woman who carries all of Hollywood in her heart," she whispered into a friend's ear, silencing the entire room. For Hepburn, this was unforgivable. To someone who lived her life with such discretion, that act of betrayal cut far too deep. Hepburn's pain grew even sharper when Acosta wrote in her private journal a cryptic line. "She wears trousers like a man loves like a woman, but fears love the way a child fears the dark." A year later, those very words appeared in Acosta's memoir, Here Lies the Heart. Although Hepburn's name was never mentioned directly, everyone in artistic circles knew exactly who was being referenced. What is most telling is that after all of it, when asked about her former lover, Hepburn responded with an icily bitter remark. "She was a fine writer, but not someone I could trust with my silence." That single line not only revealed the depth of Hepburn's wound, but also underscored the price of giving her heart to a woman, too free-spirited one who lacked the discretion necessary to protect the bond they had shared. And yet, few could have imagined that the greatest heartbreak in Hepburn's life would not come from a rebellious or manipulative woman, but rather from a gentle and tender actress, one who had once promised to stay by her side until the very end, but ultimately failed to keep that vow, Judy Holiday. 4. Judy Holiday, the woman who always saw Hepburn as the second choice. The love affair between Judy Holiday and Katharine Hepburn was a story steeped in secrecy, beginning with a gentle attachment passing through deep sorrows and ending with an outcome that no one could have foreseen. At the end of 1949 at Acosta Pictures, on the set of a celebrated film, they met for the very first time. Neither of them could have imagined that what seemed like a fleeting connection would eventually change their lives forever. At first, it was nothing more than professional respect between two talented actresses. Yet, as time passed, the conversations that stretched long after filming ended the afternoon walks around Griffith Park, and the lingering gazes that refused to break away gradually kindled a flame of affection. It was a love that had no name, yet it was present in every moment they spent together. For Hepburn, those days were truly a rare period of peace. For the first time, she felt safe in the arms of another woman. No jealous rages, no threats, no pressures from those around her. It was simply two souls discovering one another and finding solace in a world that was overflowing with prejudice and harsh judgment. But it was precisely that unjust world that destroyed everything. When rumors about their relationship began to leak, Judy panicked. At the time, she was a rising star in Hollywood, a shining public figure, and an actress upon whom many hopes had been placed. In the eyes of the world, Judy represented the ideal standard, and no one could accept her being entangled in a scandal involving a same-sex affair. Only a few weeks later at the Beverly Hills Hotel, Judy held a secret meeting with her manager. There, they reached a decision to cut off all contact with Hepburn completely. Judy began to avoid her, cancel every arrangement, and pretend as though nothing had ever happened. The tender moments they had shared, the memories that once seemed indelible, were now nothing more than a past that could never be recovered. Hepburn, though her heart was deeply wounded, refused to let anger consume her. She quietly folded Judy's handwritten letter, which still contained trembling lines of emotion. "I once wanted to leave Hollywood with you, to live hidden away in a seaside town far from the stage lights." To Hepburn, that confession felt like a blow to her heart, yet she chose not to condemn. During a private gathering with friends at her Beverly Hills home, she calmly remarked, "She chose the stage instead of the truth. I do not blame her, but I cannot forgive her." What seemed like the end of her suffering was in fact only a small chapter in the complex diary of Hepburn's romantic life. The final woman on the list of her secret loves was Dorothy Arzner, a name not widely known to the public, yet one of the most powerful and pioneering women in the history of Hollywood cinema. 5. Dorothy Arzner, a hidden love and a bitter betrayal. The relationship between Katharine Hepburn and Dorothy Arzner was a complicated secret, filled with complexities that not everyone knew about. It was not only an unfinished love never fully realized, but also a betrayal steeped in tears, one that pushed Hepburn into loneliness and stripped her of faith in everyone around her. In 1931, when Katharine Hepburn was still struggling to find her place in the film industry and had yet to land a truly remarkable role, she met Dorothy Arzner, the only woman in Hollywood at the time who stood behind the camera and directed major motion pictures. Arzner was not only an outstanding director, but also the person who guided Hepburn in finding direction for her career. It was precisely Arzner's talent and mentorship that caused Hepburn's admiration to slowly turn into affection. But what happened afterwards sent everything spiraling in a different, painful direction. Evenings spent together at a small seaside bar in Los Angeles, long hours analyzing scripts side by side, and even the seemingly accidental brushes of their hands gradually brought them closer. Yet Arzner was not someone Hepburn could easily confess her feelings to. When Hepburn finally realized she had fallen in love, Arzner did the very thing Hepburn never expected. She not only maintained her distance, but rejected Hepburn's affection with cold decisiveness. On a summer morning in 1934, when Hepburn mustered the courage to open her heart and gently held her hand, Arzner turned away in silence and firmly said, "You are an actress? I am a director. We are not allowed." That rejection left a deep wound in Hepburn, but what cut her even more profoundly was the betrayal that followed. While their relationship still lingered in the shadows, Arzner secretly began an affair with a famous Hollywood man. And that man was none other than Charles Boyer, a leading actor known for his charm, his romantic appearance, and his ability to capture every gaze. For Hepburn, this was a devastating shock, for Arzner had not only denied her love, but had also clandestinely brought another man into what Hepburn believed was a private bond shared only between the two of them. Hepburn endured not just the pain of rejection, but also the sting of witnessing betrayal from the very person she trusted most. A reliable Hollywood source later revealed that Boyer and Arzner had maintained their affair for months in secret, often meeting at secluded resorts far from the public eye. Meanwhile, Hepburn, with her boundless loyalty, remained naively hopeful, still waiting for the chance to express her love to the woman she adored. The day Hepburn discovered the truth, she did not explode in anger or collapse in anguish like a lover scorned. Instead, she chose to quietly lock the pain away within herself. A close friend of Hepburn would later recall Katharine never allowed anyone to see her break. But deep inside, she had lost faith in love and in the people she once trusted with all her heart. After this betrayal, Hepburn made the decision to close her heart forever, never again allowing anyone to enter. Checks. Barbara Stanwyck, the woman who controlled Hepburn's every move. Barbara Stanwyck was entirely different from Tallulah Bankhead. She was not loud, she was never ostentatious, and she absolutely did not easily reveal her emotions or make anything about her private life public. Yet it was precisely that guarded nature that made Hepburn unable to stop looking back at her, both captivated and haunted by a vague fear in the coldness of Stanwyck's gaze. It was a kind of danger Hepburn could never escape, and at the same time a form of love she had never experienced before in her life. They met for the first time in 1940 on the set of The Lady Eve in Hollywood, at a time when Stanwyck was at the peak of her career, while Hepburn was only just returning after a long period of being dismissed as box office poison following a string of failed films. Both women were exhausted, burdened with loneliness, carrying wounds deep inside that no one else could touch. Their affection began quietly, like an underground flame that could never be shown openly. There were no handholds in public, no love letters or exchanged gifts, but a single glance between them was enough to say everything that could not be spoken. Hepburn once confided to her close friend George Cukor during a private conversation in Beverly Hills. When she looks at me, I see a colder version of myself, and I am afraid that shadow will swallow me whole. On one occasion, when Hepburn spent too much time talking with a young female screenwriter at Warner Brothers Studios, Stanwyck did something no one could have anticipated. She smiled calmly, then quietly left a note in Hepburn's dressing room that read, "You can sleep with anyone you want, but the last person you think of will still be me." There was no explanation, just the chilling sharpness of control that Hepburn could never escape. That single line haunted her for years afterward, for she understood that she had become a prisoner inside this relationship, a prison without a door to escape. The breaking point came when Stanwyck refused to accompany Hepburn to the premiere of the Philadelphia story in 1940, citing the reason that she was afraid of drawing attention. Hepburn, a woman long accustomed to self-control, broke down and cried for the first time in years. It was a bitter moment that she could never forget, and from that night on, she cut off all contact with Stanwyck without a single word of farewell. In later years, whenever someone mentioned Barbara Hepburn would only repeat one short, haunting sentence, "I cannot bear to keep looking at myself in the mirror." For to Hepburn, Stanwyck was nothing less than a mirror, cold, merciless, impossible to control, and destined never to belong to her. Hepburn once believed that the wounds in her heart might be healed when she met another woman. But in the end, the third woman on her list of lovers made her wish they had never crossed paths at all. 7. Greta Garbo breaking up to preserve her career. Greta Garbo, one of Hollywood's immortal icons, was famous not only for her enigmatic beauty, but also for her life of complete seclusion cut off from the outside world. Her legendary line, "I want to be alone," became her trademark, yet few knew that behind that shell of solitude was a heart capable of loving and of breaking. Garbo, with her innate coldness, always hid her most secret vulnerabilities, and only one person had ever been able to step into that closed world, Katharine Hepburn. In the winter of 1938, while Hollywood still glittered with lights and rang with the applause of adoring crowds, Hepburn and Garbo quietly sought each other out in secret trips to the remote countryside of upstate New York. Their small wooden cabins, isolated from the noise and scrutiny of the world, became their refuge. Garbo once brought Hepburn to her secret Manhattan apartment where the curtains were always drawn, the telephone disconnected, and the entire world reduced to just the two of them in moments thick with silence. At first, Hepburn felt an extraordinary sense of uniqueness in this relationship. She believed Garbo had truly opened her heart, breaking down that wall of ice to let love in. Between them, words were unnecessary, only glances filled with understanding, long nights together in stillness, and a silent bond that spoke louder than language itself. Hepburn once called it a love beyond words, a connection transcending all boundaries of speech. But as if in a nightmare slowly unfolding, Garbo began to withdraw. She disappeared without warning, refused every call, leaving Hepburn adrift in long days of waiting. And when she returned, she would only say coldly, "I need time." Yet the true tragedy had not even begun. Garbo's silence and indifference not only inflicted pain upon Hepburn, but drove her into an even deeper despair. Garbo not only betrayed her trust, but dragged the secrets of their love out into the open, tearing Hepburn's heart apart and turning her into a spectacle for the world to mock. One evening in April 1941, a notorious New York tabloid suddenly published clandestine photographs exposing Hepburn with a new lover, alongside images of tender moments from her secret meetings with Garbo. Hollywood was stunned. The public buzzed relentlessly, gossip spreading like wildfire. But this was not the end of betrayal. Garbo, or those connected to her, had revealed even more secret rendezvous, whispered promises thought to belong only to them. The ultimate betrayal came when Garbo's identity and the entirety of their clandestine affair were exposed to the public, leaving Hepburn not only humiliated before society, but also trapped in a mire from which there was no escape. If Garbo was the one who drove Hepburn into silent despair, then the next woman would plunge her into a far more public humiliation. Someone who not only betrayed her, but turned Hepburn's very heart into a bargaining chip for fame and reputation. With a brilliant career and a life filled with unforgettable moments, Katharine Hepburn will forever remain a symbol of strength, independence, and unwavering determination. And yet deep within her heart, the 7 women who once passed through her life left wounds that never fully healed. She once loved with all her being, giving her heart completely. But it was precisely because of that devotion that she paid the price of loneliness, a loneliness she chose in order to protect herself so that no one could ever touch her heart again. Do you think Katharine Hepburn truly found the right kind of love? Or did she simply give her heart to the wrong people at the wrong times? Share your thoughts in the comments section below this video. And if you want to discover more dramatic stories and shocking truths about the lives of Hollywood stars, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming captivating videos.